just assumed this was normal. I thought, oh well, my body has changed, having had children, and this is my lot.
I remember the exact day. I was bleeding heavily. I was just overcome with cramps. I couldn't even stand up straight.
And this level of fatigue and exhaustion, and this level of blood loss, really. I shouldn't have this.
Heavy menstrual bleeding. Nearly 70% of Australian women have experienced it. New research, which surveyed 5,000 women aged 35 to 52, finding that for almost 1 in 4, heavy periods are frequent.
I remember waking up like every 3 hours feeling wet because my sanitary products had overflowed.
The condition, debilitating.
I was constantly overwhelmed, both at work and at home. I was always exhausted. I was really struggling to be able to think clearly at the best of times.
Signs include changing pads or tampons more than once an hour, passing blood clots larger than 50-cent pieces, and bleeding through clothes.
They're fearful about an upcoming period. When they get their period, they're fearful of doing things they would normally do. They're potentially worried about embarrassing situations. They're concerned about being able to be intimate with their partner.
Their symptoms, too often dismissed.
Women for so long have been made to feel by society, potentially by the medical profession, that heavy menstrual bleeding is normal, that periods are normal and therefore heavy periods are normal as well, and that is just not the case.
1 in 2 women don't know how to treat it. More than half yet to see their GP.
I felt that I had a private pain that I was dealing with that I didn't feel supported by really because I didn't know what to do with it.
It was affecting my mental health, and I thought, why am I not coping with this?
Menstruation still today is shrouded in stigma and shame.
People don't like talking about periods. They don't like talking about blood. They don't like talking about when women are feeling drained and exhausted.
Millions suffering in silence.
It took me 10 years to realise that heavy menstrual bleeding is treatable. I feel like I've got energy, I'm not iron deficient anymore, I've got no cramps anymore. It's just really just allowed me to step into the woman that I was born to be.
Commonwealth champ and Olympian Jana Pittman spent years experiencing heavy periods. She's now a doctor and campaigning to raise awareness, so she's with us now. Jana, why do you think we have trouble talking or hearing about this?
Because it's a women's health issue, I think is the first port of call there. I think we are getting better at it now that we're talking about things like chronic pelvic pain and endometriosis, but it's been, years and years where heavy menstrual bleeding and anything to do with periods has been something that's a bit taboo.
And the revelation that you've had periods, heavy periods yourself throughout your competitive career is fascinating because there's not really been much attention paid to what sports women endure every month as well as the training. How did that affect you?
I feel like I'm a fairly educated woman and I had no idea that I had heavy menstrual bleeding, or like we like to call it now, HMB, during my sporting career. So, in the off-season when I get a little bit bigger and my weight would return to normal as a normal woman, I'd often have heavy menstrual bleeding and then find that I was quite anaemic and need iron shots to get through my training sessions. It's so interesting though because you grow up in a family where it's a bit of suck it up princess, you're a woman, you bleed, that's kind of a blessing because it means hopefully one day you can have babies, but not really understanding that the fatigue and the anemia that was associated to the bleeding was actually affecting my training and my life in general.
This was me. I was told that, look, it's just part of being a woman, suck it up, just do your thing. And it wasn't actually until I started getting pretty regular eye infusions because it was just so terrible that a female GP went, you know what? Let's investigate this a little bit deeper. Do medical professionals need to be better educated on this?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a combined approach. I think we have to have our GPs asking questions of our women, but we also have to have the bravery as women to ask our GPs about that conversation, because what I heard from a lot of the women today was that even when they are speaking to their GP, they're not always getting the information that they need. So hopefully if lots of us are going in and saying to our GP or our gynaecologist that they need help, that what is normal, let's get that information out there and break that taboo and that stigma around, 3 or 4, 5 pads a day when you're bleeding through and getting, marks on your clothes is absolutely not normal.
Jana, do you think that, like historically, it's because of this kind of mystification about women, this almost magical witch-like status that we have, an extension of the never trust a creature that bleeds for 7 days and doesn't die, that kind of thing? Because it just seems so strange that what is clearly a medical issue isn't addressed by medical professionals.
Well, I think it's the whole, if you think about hysteria and all the word coming from when a woman used to bleed and that you could lock her away and that women wouldn't go out in public. And, we love the fact that it's changing now. We're getting people who are celebrating the first period in a young girl, having period cakes and period parties. And so we are talking about it. But if you also think about the free bleeding athlete that ran in the London Marathon a few years ago, and it was a very polarising conversation. There was some people saying, look, that is such a closed door, please, I don't want to see that, versus people celebrating the fact that she is a woman and that she's proud of that space. So it is traditional, it is a conversation that, I certainly didn't have with my mum. It's a long, long thread of where women have been and where we have to change that space because there's lots of treatment options out there. And I don't want to talk about that today because I want people to go and see their personal doctors, but you do not need to suffer through this. There has to be a point where you prioritise your health, you go to your doctor and you get help.
Can I just be clear? No one's ever told me not to trust a bleeding creature. I don't know that this is a common...
in Langbrook.
Is this common parental advice? I don't know.
I don't know any... I'm not going to say anything about this show.
Jana, I think we've got to the end of this. Thank you very much for joining us.